AI agents are everywhere, automating tasks and making decisions at machine speed. But agents make mistakes. Just one rogue agent can do big damage before you even notice. Rubrik Agent Cloud is the only platform that helps you monitor agents, set guardrails, and rewind mistakes, so you can unleash agents, not risk. Accelerate your AI transformation at Rubrik.com. That's RUBRIK.com.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Halloween podcast. I'm your host, Lyle Perez, and you're listening to a special entry of The Dark Record, where we uncover history's eeriest stories, one strange and unsettling case at a time. At the edge of a dirt road in the Mississippi Delta, where the moonlight cuts through the fog and the night holds its breath, a man is said to have made a deal. A guitar in his hand, a shadow waiting at the crossroads, and a legend that would shape the story of the blues forever. Tonight, we're talking about Robert Johnson, a bluesman whose talent was so sudden, so otherworldly, that people believed he must have sold his soul to the devil to get it. His story is tangled in music, myth, and mystery. A man who died young, left little behind, and became immortal through a handful of scratchy, haunting recordings. And this time, the legend of Robert Johnson ties us to another musical ghost story, the one you'll hear more about in our interview with Norman Woolworth, author of The Bolden Cylinder, later today. Buddy Bolden is said to haunt the birth of jazz, while Robert Johnson haunts the crossroads of the blues. Two musicians, two legends, two echoes that never quite fade. The next entry into the dark record, The Devil at the Crossroads, Robert Johnson. Let's begin. Robert Johnson was born on May 8, 1911 in Hazelhurst, Mississippi, a world defined by hot fields, winding roads, and the steady rhythm of the Delta blues. His early years were ordinary. No one could have guessed he'd become the most mythologized bluesman in American history. Johnson grew up moving from town to town with his mother, spending much of his youth in the fields and juke joints of the Mississippi Delta. It was here that music wasn't just entertainment, it was survival. The blues told stories people couldn't say out loud, carried pain they couldn't lay down anywhere else. For a young black man in the South, music was a language of its own. Early accounts describe Robert as a fair but unremarkable guitar player. He hung around older musicians like Son House and Willie Brown, trying to mimic their skill, but his playing didn't impress many. In fact, some found him annoying. A kid who hovered too close, too eager to play, not quite good enough to keep up. And then, one day, he was gone. When Johnson disappeared from the Delta, no one paid much attention, but when he returned months later, everything had changed. He walked into a juke joint with his guitar slung over his shoulder like always, but the sound that came out was something else entirely. His fingers moved like they'd been set free. His slide work was smooth, fluid, fast. His timing was perfect. People who had once dismissed him now stared in disbelief. In the early 1930s, Mississippi blues was already alive with stories about crossroads and strange encounters. Hoodoo, spirituals, and folk magic weren't just old tales. They were part of everyday life. People believed in signs, in bargains, in spirits that watched and waited in the dark. So when Robert Johnson's talent seemed to arrive overnight, folks didn't say he practiced. They whispered he made a deal. In the Delta, extraordinary talent was often explained through supernatural means. A man didn't just get that good that fast. Someone, or something, must have helped him. The whispers followed him from bar to bar, from plantation to plantation. Before long, Johnson wasn't just another blues musician. He was a story. He spent those years moving constantly, traveling dusty roads, playing for anyone who would listen. He lived the life of a wandering musician, rarely staying in one place for long. People remembered his music, but they also remembered how he seemed to belong to the road itself, like he was chasing something or being chased. Long before the world knew his name, the legend had already begun. It didn't start with the devil. It started with a guitar, a young man who disappeared, and a sound that shouldn't have been possible. Every legend needs a setting. For Robert Johnson, it begins on a dirt road beneath the Mississippi moonlight, where two paths meet and something waits in the dark. The Crossroads legend says that sometime during his disappearance, Johnson walked alone down a country road with his guitar in hand. At midnight, he came to a lonely crossroads. There, a tall, dark figure emerged from the shadows. The stranger asked for Johnson's guitar, tuned it, played a few haunting notes, and handed it back. From that moment on, Robert Johnson could play like no one else alive. That's the story. Simple, sharp, a clean bargain, soul for talent, a man and the devil beneath the stars. What makes this legend so powerful isn't just what it claims, it's where it comes from. Crossroads have long held spiritual meaning in African and African American folklore. In Hoodoo traditions, the crossroads is a thin place, a place between worlds. It's where spirits linger, where bargains can be struck, and where a person can return, changed. For many in the Delta, this wasn't just a story. It was something you could feel in the night air. Johnson never publicly claimed to have made a deal with the devil, but his reputation did it for him. Fellow musicians like Son House remembered how he returned from his disappearance playing like someone possessed. It was too fast, too clean, too sudden. In the Mississippi Delta of the 1930s, the line between talent and the supernatural wasn't a wall, it was a whisper. The legend grew stronger after Johnson recorded one of his most famous songs, Crossroad Blues, in 1936. On the surface, the lyrics are simple. A man stuck at a crossroads, begging God for mercy before the sun goes down. But to listeners, especially in the years after his death, it became the anthem of the bargain itself. They heard more than words. They heard the echo of the deal. The story of a musician making a pact with a dark force wasn't new. Folklorists traced similar stories to earlier bluesmen, most famously Tommy Johnson, who reportedly told people he sold his soul at the crossroads for his guitar skills. But it was Robert's music, his eerie playing, and his tragic death that cemented him as the face of the myth. Even now, the legend isn't about what can be proven. It's about what people felt when they heard him play. A man alone with his guitar, a voice that sounded like it had come from somewhere else, something older, something waiting. And so, the myth of the crossroads took root, not just as a ghost story, but as a piece of American folklore. A tale passed down in whispers, etched into the grooves of a record, replayed every time someone drops the needle on Crossroad Blues.
Do you love the strange, the unexplained, and the downright terrifying? Horrifying History takes you on a chilling journey into the dark corners of the past, where history and horror collide. From haunted places and ghostly legends to unsolved mysteries and terrifyingly true stories, you will uncover the twisted facts that history books leave out. Who were the real monsters behind infamous legends? What dark secrets lie buried in the pages of history? Every episode, we reveal the eerie truths that will send shivers down your spine. Are you brave enough to face the darkness? Horrifying History, available now wherever you listen to your podcasts. But don't wait for too long. The past might just come looking for you. Listen if you dare.
Robert Johnson's story burned bright and ended fast. In 1938, just a few short years after recording the songs that would cement his name in music history, Johnson died at the age of 27. The details of his death were murky from the start, and that uncertainty only poured fuel on the legend. What we do know is that Johnson was playing at a dance in Greenwood, Mississippi. He'd been performing in juke joints across the Delta, living the hard, transient life of a traveling bluesman. He was young, talented, and admired, but he also had enemies. One story says that during that final performance, Johnson was given a bottle of whiskey by a jealous husband. He drank it, not realizing it had been poisoned. A few days later, he was gone. There was no autopsy, no official cause of death. He was buried in a simple grave, unmarked and uncertain. To this day, multiple churches claim to be the site of his burial. No one knows for sure where he lies. For most people, that would be the end. For Robert Johnson, it was the beginning. It's here that the legend of the Crossroads took on a new, darker shape. A mysterious deal followed by an early death. It was too perfect for storytellers to resist. It fit the old folk patterns. Power comes at a cost, and the devil always collects his due. When Johnson died, very few people outside the South knew his name. His handful of recordings, just 29 songs, were made in small, scratchy sessions in 1936 and 1937. They weren't chart toppers, they weren't famous, but they carried something in them. His voice had a sharp, aching edge. His guitar seemed to fill every space around it. To listeners who discovered his music decades later, it sounded almost supernatural. In 1961, Columbia Records released King of the Delta Blues Singers, and everything changed. Musicians like Bob Dylan, Keith Richards, and Eric Clapton heard those recordings and couldn't believe what they were listening to. It wasn't just skill, it was presence. The kind that lingers long after the last note fades. That rediscovery gave new life to the myth. People began to look backward, trying to make sense of the voice that sounded like it had risen from the dirt roads of another world. And when they couldn't find clear answers about his life or death, they filled the silence with something else. The story of a deal with the devil. It's here that Robert Johnson became something more than a man. He became a figure standing forever at a midnight crossroads, guitar in hand, waiting for anyone who dares to make the same bargain. There's a strange kind of magic in old recordings. They don't just capture sound, they trap a moment, a breath, a voice. The hiss of a needle or the crackle of an ancient groove can feel less like technology and more like a seance. When we press play, it isn't just music we hear, it's a ghost speaking from another time. Robert Johnson's legend isn't built on big stages or news headlines, it's built on recordings. Just 29 songs cut over 2 sessions in Texas in the 1930s. They're scratchy, imperfect, and haunting. But those recordings are the only reason his story reached the world at all. They outlived him, and like an echo that won't fade, They made sure the legend of the Crossroads didn't die in Mississippi's red dirt. That idea of music as a kind of supernatural residue connects Johnson to another haunted corner of American music, the story of Buddy Bolden. Bolden is often called the father of jazz, but unlike Johnson, no verified recordings of him have ever surfaced. Instead, there's a legend, a single wax cylinder that may hold Bolden's sound. Some believe it was lost, others claim it never existed, and some whisper it's still out there, a ghost recording waiting to be found. That legend inspired Norman Woolworth's novel, The Bolden Cylinder, which Megan and I will be talking about later today. It's fiction, but it's rooted in something real. The idea that early music is wrapped in mystery, half history and half haunting. Bolden is the ghost of jazz. Johnson is the devil of the blues. The connection isn't just about sound, it's about the way these stories are born. Bolden disappeared into silence. Johnson disappeared into legend. Bolden's music was never captured. Johnson's voice was caught on record, but it still sounds like it's reaching out from somewhere else. Both men stand at the edges of two of America's most powerful musical forms, their stories tangled in myth, rumor, and superstition. Jazz and blues were both branded the devil's music in their early years. Church leaders warned that the rhythms were dangerous, sinful, corrupting. But people listened anyway, because there's something about music that slips past rules. It speaks to something older, something human. For Bolden, that devil was silence, a legend built around what we can't hear. For Johnson, it was a midnight bargain, a legend built around what we can't explain. And more than a century later, those stories are still being told, one through a missing cylinder, one through a haunted guitar. The legend of Robert Johnson has a way of sounding almost too perfect. A struggling young musician disappears, returns with supernatural talent, sings about Crossroads, then dies young and mysterious. It's the kind of story that spreads easily because it fits the shape of an old pattern. But when the story is peeled back, a different picture starts to appear. Johnson's overnight transformation was probably the result of time spent studying and practicing with real blues players, including Ike Zimmerman, a man who was known to teach guitar in graveyards at night, not because he was summoning spirits, but because it was quiet and no one would bother them. Over months of intense practice, Johnson became good. Very good. People weren't prepared for the change. The supposed devil at the Crossroads story also has earlier roots. A blues musician named Tommy Johnson, no relation, had already been telling a similar tale years before Robert. He liked to say he got his skill by meeting a spirit at a crossroads and making a deal. It was likely a joke, a wink to the folklore everyone grew up hearing. But when Robert Johnson died, the legend that had belonged to Tommy attached itself to him instead. Skeptics point out that the Crossroads myth fits into a long line of deal with the devil stories found in Europe and Africa. Folklorists can trace its bones all the way back to West African trickster figures and European Faustian legends. It's less about a single man making a deal and more about how cultures explain brilliance they can't easily understand. There's also the shadow of the times. In the early 20th century, blues and jazz were often branded as the devil's music by church groups and white moralists. These labels weren't just about religion, they were about control. Music that came from black communities that carried rhythm and fire was seen as dangerous. Saying the devil gave someone their talent was an easy way to frame genius as something evil. And yet, even with these rational explanations, the story refuses to fade. If anything, skepticism makes the legend stronger. Because the Crossroads isn't just a location in Mississippi, it's a symbol, It's the place where choices are made, where someone stands in the dark, holding everything they are and everything they could be, and decides which road to take. Robert Johnson's myth endures because it isn't really about him alone. It's about ambition, sacrifice, the uneasy line between brilliance and damnation. And like all good legends, it gives people a way to talk about something too big to name. Even now, more than 80 years after his death, people still visit Mississippi's Crossroads, guitar in hand, just to stand where the story lives. Whether or not anyone ever met a devil there, the legend has already done its work.
Do you love the strange, the unexplained, and the downright terrifying? Horrifying History takes you on a chilling journey into the dark corners of the past, where history and horror collide. From haunted places and ghostly legends to unsolved mysteries and terrifyingly true stories, you will uncover the twisted facts that history books leave out. Who were the real monsters behind infamous legends? What dark secrets lie buried in the pages of history? Every episode, we reveal the eerie truths that will send shivers down your spine. Are you brave enough to face the darkness? Horrifying History, available now wherever you listen to your podcasts. But don't wait for too long. The past might just come looking for you. Listen if you dare.
Some stories stick with you, not because they're proven, but because they feel true in some deeper way. The legend of Robert Johnson is one of those. It isn't just about a man making a deal at the crossroads. It's about what we imagine when we hear a sound that shouldn't exist. When I listen to Robert Johnson's recordings, I can hear the distance between us. That faint hiss, the scratch of the needle, the thinness of the sound. It's more than age. It's as if something is trapped inside. A voice that shouldn't have survived the decades somehow did. It's haunting, not because of ghosts, but because it feels like one is speaking. The Crossroads is a powerful image. It's not just a road in Mississippi. It's the moment where everything changes, where you look at your life and wonder what it would cost to become something more. Every artist, every dreamer has stood at their own crossroads. Most of us don't meet a shadow in the dark, but we make deals all the same, sacrificing time, love, comfort, pieces of ourselves to chase something we can't quite name. Robert Johnson's story resonates because it mirrors something human. He was a man who wanted to be more than ordinary, and whether he met the devil or just practiced until his fingers bled, he became unforgettable. That's a kind of magic all on its own. And then there's the sound. That scratchy, ghost-like quality in old blues records connects him to the larger mythology of early American music. The same space Buddy Bolden occupies. Bolden's ghost lives in silence, in a lost cylinder no one's ever heard. Johnson's ghost lives in the grooves of a record, always playing, always waiting. Two men, two legends, one in jazz, one in the blues, both haunted by something just out of reach. As I write this, I can't help but think about how legends outlive facts. The truth gets blurry, the details fade, but the story grows stronger. Because sometimes people need the devil at the crossroads. They need the lost recording. They need the ghost. Robert Johnson's life was short, but the shadow he cast has stretched across generations. Every time someone picks up a guitar, every time a record spins, and those rough notes fill the air, the legend breathes again. Maybe the Crossroads isn't about what Robert Johnson did. Maybe it's about what we keep bringing back to it. That brings us to the end of this special episode of The Dark Record. We followed Robert Johnson from the dusty roads of Mississippi to the midnight crossroads where legend says he struck a bargain with the devil. we've traced the echoes of his voice through a handful of recordings that somehow became the foundation of a myth, and connected his story to another haunted corner of music history, the mystery of the Bolden Cylinder. Buddy Bolden is the ghost of jazz. Robert Johnson is the devil of the blues. One story is wrapped in silence. The other is carved into the grooves of a record that never quite lets go. Later today, we will be releasing our interview with author Norman Woolworth to talk about his book, The Bolden Cylinder. If you've ever felt the weight of an old song, if you've ever wondered where legends are born, you won't want to miss it. Until then, I'm Lyle Perez, and this has been the Halloween Podcast presenting The Dark Record. If you enjoyed the episode, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. It helps keep the show alive and weird. You can also explore sources, extras, and more at our Facebook page at facebook.com/The Halloween Podcast or at our website, thehalloweenpodcast.com. Thanks for listening. Keep your eyes on the shadows, and remember, every song has a price, and some are paid in more than sorrow. Have a good night.
Do you love the strange, the unexplained, and the downright terrifying? Horrifying History takes you on a chilling journey into the dark corners of the past, where history and horror collide. From haunted places and ghostly legends to unsolved mysteries and terrifyingly true stories, you will uncover the twisted facts that history books leave out. Who were the real monsters behind infamous legends? What dark secrets lie buried in the pages of history? Every episode, we reveal the eerie truths that will send shivers down your spine. Are you brave enough to face the darkness? Horrifying History, available now wherever you listen to your podcasts. But don't wait for too long. The past might just come looking for you. Listen if you dare.